Hey guys, Legendaray here, and welcome back to another Clash Royale video. Today, we have Aaron back on the channel, sharing some replays of him pushing up to 8,000 trophies in Clash Royale. Now, these replays were from the end of the previous season, and at that time, it was actually enough to be number 69 in the world. Now, I do realize that these replays are going to be a little bit older. That being said, they were still played after the balance changes were released. So the decks that he faces in today's replays are still going to be some of the most popular decks that you will face in this current meta. Anyways, as always, huge thanks to Aaron for sharing these replays. I will leave his Twitter and YouTube channel down in the description if you'd like to see more amazing Mortar gameplay. While you're down there, if you could please leave a like on the video and subscribe to my channel, that would be greatly appreciated. Now, one more thing, I know this will be a little bit more difficult for you guys to spell, but I have had to change my creator code back to the old Legendaray. So if you would like to support me, feel free to use code Legendaray in the Clash Royale shop. Any support would be greatly appreciated. And with all of that out of the way, let's get right into the replays. Alright, so this very first match today is going to be against Osama, and this guy is known to be one of the best Three Musketeers players in the entire game. And so, of course, Three Musketeers just got a buff. Of course, he's going to be playing these Three Musketeers. So let's go ahead and see how Aaron tears this deck apart. So starting off, as you can see, Aaron never afraid to start off with a Mortar. He's very, very aggressive with Mortar, a lot more aggressive than I would be. However, unfortunately, the Magic Archer is a little bit rough for Mortar players to face, being able to get that chip damage. So you can see here Aaron using his cycling back to his second Mortar, and he's actually just straight up getting a Mortar lock right out of the start of the match. Absolutely insane. Here he does go in with a little bit of skeletons, and you know, the barb gets a hit, but compared to the Mortar lock that he's getting in the left lane, absolutely insane. Takes the tower down to, well, Osama's emoting, so I can't tell, but 2705 HP just off of that first successful push. Now, the rest of this matchup is going to get a lot harder, so as the Mortar player, you're going to want to get as much damage in single elixir as possible. You'll know that in double elixir, with all the cheap mini tank type distraction units that are in Three Musketeers, it can almost be impossible to even get a single Mortar locked onto the tower. So here you can see he's cycling a knight for the Dark Prince. And then you just go ahead and he's just gonna continue cycling and playing Mortars once the opponent's troops go down. Unfortunately, he does have a Magic Archer, does go down to a log though, so Aaron's just gonna go ahead and keep cycling and trying to get chip damage over and over again onto the tower. Now Aaron's just cycling, very, very chill as we head towards double elixir mode. And now with 10 seconds left, Aaron's gonna go in here with a Mortar on offense. Now, this Mortar, the point of it isn't to solely get a lock onto the tower. In fact, you can see here, it actually does the opposite. The opponent actually gets a Magic Archer and gets like several hundred damage onto the tower. But, the goal here is you're just constantly applying pressure so that the opponents are not able to build up a Three Musketeer push of their own. So here you can see again, just Ice Golem comes down, and a Knight does manage to predict that Magic Archer. Very, very well played by Aaron there. He does a very good job at predicting Magic Archers in this matchup. And you can see he's just slowly but surely outcycling the Magic Archer. And now he's going in with another Mortar. Magic Archer's nowhere in cycle. Of course, he will be able to cycle back to it. But that's the whole point of a cycle deck, right? You're gonna slowly but surely force your opponents and outcycle their counters until you can eventually overpower them and get your own locks onto the tower. So here the Osama actually tries to predict a Mortar here. That fails, and that just gives Aaron a chance to go in with a Mortar. Predictive NATO. NATO's the Dark Prince out of the way and gets a lock onto the tower. That's kind of like the secret weapon of Mortar cycle, especially against decks with a ton of medium health glass tanks. Using that tornado to pull the opponent's troops to the opposite lane is kind of like your trump card. And here, another very insane play I definitely wouldn't do. He plays the Knight farther back. That way the Heal Spirit actually doesn't jump onto the Knight, and that gives Aaron the time to be able to react to it and play the log to take down the Musketeers. Anyways, here, just some simple defense here, going in with a Knight tank, cycle some of his stuff, cycle the log, get to some archers, and yeah, you can see now that Aaron is just so far ahead in terms of damage. 868 is about the time where you can begin to just try and spell cycle the opponent out. Cycling logs, cycling tornadoes, and then eventually getting one final rocket onto the tower is going to be very, very deadly. So here you can see Aaron, I think he doesn't even, yeah, okay, he just lets the mortar take down the magic archer, and then he cycles a log onto the tower. That's another 100 damage off onto the opponent's tower, and he only needs to cycle a couple more logs before it's just rocket range. Rockets out onto the 3 musketeers, and as you can see in triple elixir, we're cycling so quickly. Another log comes down there, and now we are just straight up in spell cycle range. So rocket comes down, NATO comes down as well, and the tower is going to be going down. A very, very clean match. Of course, he does have to defend this push first, but he does. Rocket comes down. GG, well played. Very, very clean match by Aaron, taking down 3 musketeers. Alrighty, so this next matchup is again going to be a very popular deck that you're going to be facing quite a bit in this current meta, and that is the new Mother Witch Elite Barbarian Bridge Spam deck. Now this deck is so powerful and so annoying, especially with that Mother Witch, because when the opponents know how to play the Mother Witch, especially against cycle cards such as the skeletons and the archers, it can really build up a ton of hogs and just completely overwhelm you if you're not careful. Anyways, here, got a little bit of a push here, not that big of a deal to defend. Aaron just cycles to the knight and is able to completely nullify it, and the knight is so useful, especially against these bridge spam type matchups, because you don't have any other mini tank. So you're either going to have to distract the bridge spam units with your cycle cards, or you're gonna have to tank those bridge spam units with your knights. So here the opponent goes in, cycles his elite barbarians in the back of the arena. And yeah, we're just going to cycle our archers, cycle our stuff here. And as you can see, the opponent uses Mother Witch and generates two free basically hogs there. And that's going to get a ton of damage, although we are pretty smart. Get that King Tower activation with that bandit. And some very sneaky defense with these archers. Does generate another hog, but what else can we do? Still barely take any damage though, with a very clean initial defense. And yeah, the goal of a bridge spam matchup is you're kind of just defending. The reality is bridge spam matchups can apply so much pressure, and especially this deck composition with the cannon cart, the elite barbarians, and the electro wizard, there's just so little opportunity for you to get mortar locks onto the tower. So as you can see here, it's just the same thing over and over again. Here, I think Aaron, yeah, he rockets out this push here. Just kind of simpler to just rocket it out than having to spend all of your distraction units on defending this push. And now you can see he has the Knight cycle for the bandit, which he previously would not have if he had spent it on the cannon cart. So rocket, also an extremely underrated defensive unit, especially again in this deck composition where it's a little bit more heavier and we have these units like the cannon cart and the elite barbarians. Either way though, Aaron here going in on defense, just cycling some of his defensive troops, because again, it's just not the right moment to go in on offense. Of course, right as I say that, he plays the mortar. As you can see, he's applying pressure in the opposite lane. The mortar does get distracted, so the NATO into the blind range does not succeed, but it still does apply quite a bit of pressure, and the opponent was not able to build up the bridge spam push that he wanted. So now Aaron, I believe he's just going to sit back again, go in with the defensive mortar, and once again wait for another opportunity to go in on offense. So the opponent here, he does starting to get some fireball chip damage stacking up against Aaron's towers here, but you can see Aaron's just gonna be kind of chilling out, cycling stuff, and waiting for the exact perfect moment to go in on offense. So he goes in another defensive mortar. Defensive mortars are so useful. And as you can see here, he's just gonna do some very smart defense, distracting with his cycling units, and then going in with the knights for the big tanks that he needs to deal with. Fireball comes down on the archers. And you can see just how difficult it is for a mortar player to even get a single mortar shot on the opponent's tower. Nevertheless, Aaron is patient. He goes in with the defensive mortar once again. And yeah, as you can see, just kind of repetitive defense. The bridge spam pushes are basically the same every single time. So, you know, once you get that pattern down, you will be able to consistently defend these types of bridge spam pushes. As you can see, Knight comes down, and then he's just constantly using the defensive mortars as well as the cycle cards to damage the push down. Going into the last minute of this match, now the opponent's just, you know, the opponent's got like a 500 damage lead, so he's just kind of sitting back here. Of course, he is playing quite a bit of offense, but in terms of getting spell damage, he's not really focusing on that. While in this triple elixir time, it's Aaron's turn to try and get that chip damage. As you can see, even going in with a NATO just to try and get some chip damage onto the tower is going to be very useful. And let's see, here he goes in, probably, yeah, with a NATO. NATO's a cannon cart just to add a little bit more distracting. Goes in with a log as well. and it's not looking good here. But that being said, there is only a 400 damage deficit, while the rocket does 500 damage. Bandit does get a hit, unfortunately, but now with 22 seconds left, Aaron pulls out his trump card and he's able to cycle 2 rockets in this time. So as you can see, first rocket comes down, he's just gonna NATO and log out this push in the left lane, perfectly defend this push in the right lane, and then he's just going to send in one last rocket, and that's going to pretty much secure him the win. So as you can see, just by playing really perfect defense, you're able to just sneak in 2 rockets at the very end of the match and just win on the tiebreaker. Very difficult matchup, but very expertly played here by Aaron. Alright, this third match today is going to be against an Electro Giant Lightning deck. This is one of the most popular beatdown decks in this current meta. That being said, the opponent does have the Magic Archer switched in, I believe, for the Dark Prince. I'm not actually, no, not for the Dark Prince, for the Baby Dragon. So, still very similar way that you will approach this matchup. So as you can see here, the opponent actually decided to go in with a Magic Archer, and Aaron actually was able to predict that. I'm not sure if that's because this is top ladder and he knew he was running this specific variation, but either way, still kind of a nice prediction on his end. But as you can see, the opponent's got a little bit of a push coming in, but Aaron defends is very smart. The archers will go down, but that actually allows him to get a King Tower activation. So very heads up play by Aaron, and this King Tower activation will of course help him quite a bit in the remainder of this match, where he has to defend these massive beatdown pushes that the opponent will be building up. Speaking of which, beatdown push coming in right now. Got the Electro Giant coming down, and Aaron just goes ahead and cycles the Knight. Now that he has the activated King's Tower, he needs the Mortar to distract the Electro Giant. He can't play it on offense. So you can see here, defensive Mortar comes in, and the opponent actually just decides to lightning out the Mortar and the Knight, trying to get that Electro Giant into tower range. However, we're back to another Tornado, so a very well-timed Tornado is going to stop any damage from getting onto his towers. Another very clean defense, and he's also back to a Mortar. I'm doubtful that he will go in with an offensive Mortar, but okay, he actually does, and he goes in the opposite lane where he already has some chip damage. So the opponent, of course, gets a Goblin Cage down, as well as a Magic Archer. We're just going to go ahead and Archer and log that Magic Archer out, and the Mortar actually does get a lock onto the tower. So yeah, Mortar locks onto the tower. We're just going to go and distract it as best as possible. I believe Mortar is going to get 2 hits total onto that tower, while the opponent is just going to build up. Wow, the Mortar actually gets 3 hits. So very successful push. And here, now that we are in double elixir time, Aaron does go in with a Mortar in the opposite lane. The reason is because he's able to just cycle back to another Mortar. It's not that big of a deal because we are running a cycle deck. So this defense goes down, and now we do have a little bit of push to deal with, but of course we're back to another Mortar. So Mortar comes down here, and it actually does get a lock onto the tower once again. As you can see, the Magic Archer is played right at the bridge, but look at this push the opponent has here. I mean, the first Electro Giant goes down, but he's got a gigantic push, and he has Elixir for the Lightning. Lightning's down this Mortar, but as you can see, we're back to another Tornado. And just look at this, the 3 towers just kind of tear apart this Electro Giant. It barely gets any damage onto the tower, and that entire push just got completely obliterated by the 3 activated towers. So going into double elixir time, massive lead, almost just straight up within spell cycle range is the opponent's tower. And yeah, as you can see, we're just going to be trying to continue to apply pressure in the opposite lane and prevent the opponents from building up any sort of push. Of course, Mortar and a log takes down the Magic Archer, very useful interaction. And then here he goes in, and okay, he's just gonna go ahead and pull the Electro Giant out of the range of the Mortar. I figured he would do that, but I wasn't sure. Anyways, that does get the Mortar lock that Aaron needs. Second Mortar comes down as well, just to apply even more pressure. But at this point, it's pretty much just game over. There's nothing the opponent can do. He pulls in the Electro Giant here. Actually, was not the best NATO in hindsight, but I guess it will get the job done just because we have so much HP to spare on our tower. Anyways, again, this push gets so much damage, but we're still so far ahead. Tower within spell cycle range, and that's just simply a GG well played, tearing apart a Electro Giant beatdown deck. Alrighty, so this last match today is going to be against a Golem clone deck. Now, the difficulty of decks like these are the fact that there's just so many ways that they can nullify our defensive answers. Specifically, we're talking about the arrows. The arrows are just basically the catch-all for archers. They just completely take those archers and throw them off the arena. And yeah, as you can see here, the opponent also just goes ahead and plays a golem as the very first play of the game. So, I mean, what can you do, really? But here, Aaron tries to make the best of it, and he goes in with a little push in the opposite lane. The opponent decides to ignore it and tries to go in for an all-out push to try and just steamroll Aaron and take down his tower. Unfortunately, though, Aaron's quite good at Mortar Cycle, so he's not going to let that happen. As you can see, the opponent gives him rocket value, so he instantly takes it, and as well as, I believe, he's just going to NATO the golem to the king tower. I actually wouldn't have done that. I would have just NATO'd to clear out the bats, so very, very heads-up play. He takes quite a bit of damage, but look at the bottom left side of your screen. He's already taken the opponent's tower down to 691, and that's just straight up spell range. NATO, rocket, and log does a little bit over 700 damage total. So literally, as soon as we make it to overtime, Aaron just needs to send in a rocket, send in a NATO, send in a log, and that's just game over. So obviously a very good start. Adding on to that, Aaron actually predicts when the opponent will go in with a golem. He goes in with a knight at the bridge, and this is something I like to do all the time as well. The opponent has no choice but to ignore that knight. Otherwise, he simply will not have elixir to support his offensive push. So, as you can see, Night Witch comes down. Arrows will obviously come down on the archers. I mean, and now Aaron's gonna have to defend. Luckily, though, he has both the tornado as well as the 3 towers. As you can see, he actually doesn't even use the NATO on that clone until the golem is about to pop. He uses it to clear out the bats, and just another such a clean defense by him, absolutely just nullifying any sort of push that the opponent has. So going into double elixir time, Aaron's still going in on offense, applying some offensive pressure just in case it does go to a 2-tower game, because golem clone, you know, if you make one mistake, the opponents are just going to take your tower. So as you can see, 36 seconds left. Aaron's gonna go on the defensive once again. Mortar comes down, and archers, I believe, will... Okay, actually, no. He just rockets out this push here. I think archers will probably come down sooner or later to damage down the bats. Actually, no. Wow, look at that Ice Spirit. Takes down all of the bats right there. NATO will wait so that the golem won't get death damage. 18 seconds left. The opponent goes to the golem at the bridge. He's getting desperate for damage, but as you can see, it's just not going to happen. Mortar fails to pull the golem, but we're just gonna cycle back to our NATO, pull that golem away from the tower, and yeah, again, a very comfortable, very clean victory over golem clone. So there we go, guys. Those were 4 replays that brought Aaron to 8,000 trophies with Mortar Cycle. Absolutely insane gameplay. There's just so much to learn from his gameplay that I just always have to share his Mortar Cycle replays, because honestly, they're a lot better than mine. Again, huge thanks to Aaron for sharing these replays. His social media and YouTube are going to be down in the description. But unfortunately, guys, that's all I've got time for in today's episode. Huge thanks to all of my channel members. You guys are the absolute G's. If you enjoyed, please leave a like down below, as well as a subscription to my channel. And as always, this is Legendaray, and I'm signing off. See you guys next time.